out of your boys. I was like, I should probably just give these to Julie.
I can guarantee you they will not wear those.
Well, no, but I mean, if they wanted to.
I'll tell you what, I'd wear it pheasant hunting on a real cold day with a wind.
There you go.
Okay, but that's the other benefit, though, for real. Like,
You know that they do actually block, I mean, they block wind pretty
Yeah.
well.
Really?
Like surprisingly, they keep your face warm. Yeah.
that's why I wear mine all the way to the car out of Target. I'm like,
And I
let's
haven't
hope
even.
that-
I've done that back when the mandate was on, and
Yeah.
I was wearing them. I was like, wow, because this thing really blocks the.
I haven't even asked Adam if they provide masks at the hospital that he used to wear, or if he wears his own. I should ask him.
Don't you think we're gonna have less flu?
We already have, yeah.
We did last year, so I'd expect so.
I mean, less because we're wearing masks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
All right.
Oh, the flu's everywhere right now.
Is the camera rolling?
All the kids at school.
Okay.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
All right, good evening. It is Monday, December 20th at 7 p.m. and I'm calling the Maple Plain City Council meeting to order. Please stand and join us for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am looking for a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved?
Moved by Cahill,
I'll second that.
second by Fay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. First item of business this evening is visitors to be heard. Do you have anything?
We do. Judy?
I have a couple things. Judy Sutherland, Main Street in Maple Plain here. I have tried several times to get an answer to my question through all the people in City Hall. And the last I talked to Clarissa, I asked her and she said, yes, she did ask Mark, but she forgot what Mark said. So tonight, I'm here to ask Mark my question, and maybe I'll get an answer. I know that when Helgren's or Arcona, when they redid their building, you were adamant that there had to be all this landscaping done around the building, soften it, make it look nice. I was sure that when Gateway got built and Iron Exchange, I was sure there was all kinds of landscaping that was supposed to be there, because we've got the little dividers between the rows, but it's just rock. And so, Mark, was there to be any landscaping? Because I know 50-some years ago when the grocery store built, that wasn't on anybody's radar, let's have it look nice. But now, was that a rule that we just haven't followed?
So the rule was, there's a condition of the approval that they had to provide the city with a landscape plan. They gave us a concept, if you remember, kind of illustrative three-dimensional plans that showed landscaping, but they never came back in, and we've got quite a bit of correspondence asking them to submit that, and they won't do it. So they have a requirement for landscaping in front of the store and along the patio on the west side of the store, the restaurant.
Right.
Yeah.
But nothing in the dividers or as far as Villamille doing it was just
So
Iron
Villamille's-
Exchange?
Yeah, so Villamille's renovation project didn't kind of kick in full landscaping on all of that, but there is a portion up by the front of that Iron Exchange that kicked in and triggered landscape requirement, and we're still not, we
Pushed
still don't
back.
have that.
Right.
Yep.
So maybe somewhere they'll get it done.
I think
would-
that's our hope, is that they would comply with the condition. I think otherwise they're not in compliance with the site plan approval,
Right.
so.
It would look nice to have something down there with a little softness. The other thing I wanted to ask was, I don't like the word micromanaging, and Clarissa is new. I know she's maybe coming up to a year this spring or something, but somebody on the council has to be able to engage in conversations with Clarissa. She doesn't know what we do. Mayor Julie, you got some wonderful award given to you. I would have thought that our administrator would have made sure that got in our newspaper, because our newspaper, Joanne Rhee is on a rampage. Nothing is in there about Maple Plain. We do some things that it could have been in, and she went up and talked to Clarissa this last week. Her comment was, well, if you see things that you would like in the newspaper, bring it to us and we'll put it in. I don't think that's Joanne's job. But can't somebody, and don't use the word micromanage, because I'm sure nobody likes that word, but can't somebody say we've got things that should be going in, the View Santa Claus, that should have gone in. It took 3 people to get the article on the Good Neighbor Award to go in. To me, that was just things that, boy, if Maple Plain is doing something, you read about Delano, Loretto, Mount, you read about all of it. Maple Plain is doing nothing according to our little paper. That's my only comment, and it's not her fault. She's new. I don't know what we've got set up that she would even look at. But somebody on the council should be able to guide her without someone else saying that's micromanaging. Somebody. I don't want it to be me, and I don't want it to be Joanne, because I don't think Joanne, that should be something she should be doing. So that's my only comment, is to think about it, and your article should have been in the, that was quite an honor, it should have been in the paper. We are doing things. So just to let people know, because I do hear that it doesn't look like we're doing anything. Anyway, that's all. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
Any other visitors? Okay, next item of business this evening is consent agenda, which includes letters A through L. I am going to pull letter F because there is a resolution vote in there. I do have 2 things to note. In the minutes from November 8th, the motion should have been carried 4-0, not 5-0. And in the annual appointments, there was just I believe a wrong name inserted. It should be Councilmember DeLong, not Councilmember Fay, serving on Personnel Committee, if my notes were right.
Right.
Is that right? Okay. So with those 2 changes.
Mayor, can we pull L as well?
Sure. So L. Okay. All right, so with those 2 changes to letter A, letter F, letter L, pulling letter F and letter L, oh, I said that wrong. Pulling letter F and L and the changes to A and H, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
I'll second.
second by DeLong. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. So I had pulled letter F, so I'm gonna just let staff briefly go over that with us, and then it is a resolution, so it's the practice of our council to do a roll call vote.
Letter F is the designation of polling places for 2022. This motion is required by Minnesota statute 204B.16, subdivision 1. It's just essentially a housekeeping item going forward.
All right. Any questions for staff? All right, so we are looking for a motion to approve the resolution designating the 2022 polling place.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Fay,
Second.
second by Councilmember DeLuca. Any further discussion? It's a roll call vote.
Okay, sorry, I was waiting for that. No further. DeLong,
Aye.
Fay,
Aye.
Moskowski,
Aye.
DeLuca,
Aye.
Cahill.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. And then Councilmember DeLong, you pulled letter L, so I'm gonna turn that over to you.
Thank you. I'm curious on how the discussion went on this. It just seems odd to me. How long, and I'm just getting into this whole HSA thing because we just switched over to them this year. How long have we been paying into the HSA for the staff?
Oh, I have that somewhere. It's been since, you guys had Public Works. You were paying into it for Public Works. I want to say it was at least 8 years, 7 or 8 years.
So then we have a high deductible HSA plan high deductible insurance plan with an HSA?
Yes.
Okay. And how did it come about that we've decided that we're stopping paying our employees this money?
Well, I guess I would say I kind of broached the subject because the language, so first of all, it was pointed out to me when we had our meeting with our health insurance agent, and he kind of talked about how it was a very generous benefit, and he didn't see it a lot, and so then I referred to our policy and asked Sharon about it. The policy did not, to me, reflect the fact that it was intended to pay HSA. It refers to premiums directly, does not refer anything to health savings accounts at all. And so my guess is that it was a misinterpretation of policy to begin with. And so I took it to Personnel Committee, kind of made sure they knew about it, and we talked about going forward, and we all kind of agreed it is a very generous policy, and that we would maintain it for a few years, but step it back over time.
To zero, though.
That is the recommendation of the personnel policy.
Personnel
Or
actually
Personnel Committee.
recommended that step back be done in 3 years. You've done it in 4.
Oh, did I have it wrong? I had it mapped out in my budget. Maybe I misinterpreted the
Has it-
wording.
Has it been at $2,600 annually?
Well, that's what we determined.
No,
If
it
you
was at-
remember, we had long discussions with the previous administrator to try to get our arms around that. We never could really get a good solid answer. And it took
This
Clarissa
might be
doing
the
a
reason
little
why.
big, well, yeah, that's what we think.
Well, and my concern is this, my company puts money in an HSA, my wife's company puts money in an HSA. 2,500 is less than what my wife's is, but more than what mine is. To me, if I'm working here and I'm getting that benefit, I'm seeing that as a big reduction in my benefit. How is that being received?
Well, there's only 2 that are receiving it, myself and Sharon, so I guess I'm okay with it, but I also make a decent wage, and so it's not as big of a hit to me. Sharon didn't vocalize too much, maybe a little bit of frustration, but I'm sure she's not happy about it. She certainly uses her health care more than I do, so.
I don't like seeing it going down to zero. That's a pay cut. It's $2,500 a year pay cut. That's a tax deferred pay cut.
Something that never should have been in there, John.
I understand that, but we've been paying it for 9 years. We've been talking about precedent
Well,
and everything else.
no, Sharon hasn't been here 9 years. We don't know, we can't figure out what happened before that.
Right.
Somehow Bobby interpreted it and began applying it, and we're just trying to write what used to be the correct way, at least what we could figure out. And out of respect, we didn't do it all at one full swoop. We said, let's do that in 3 years.
Okay.
It's certainly a council decision, but
And I think it gives us incentive as well. We've talked about changing the healthcare plans to, is the high deductible the right plan? If we're not gonna pay the HSA. So I think it gives us incentive to stay on the discussion as well, instead of just throwing money at the problem.
Yeah, but you have to have a high deductible plan in order to have an HSA. So the only reason why I think an employee, because I've had a PPO and now they've given us the option for the HSA, the only reason why an employee would choose to go to a high deductible plan is because of that HSA benefit.
Yeah.
So-
We've never given them a choice, though. That's the problem.
Right.
But they will have a choice going
But,
forward.
yeah.
No, but I'm saying we could.
Oh, okay.
And I think we should continue
think
that
we should.
discussion.
You might not have been subject to the conversations that we had with, like Mike said, trying to get our hands around, what are we paying, what are you paying as an employee, you know, what benefits, and it was very uncomfortable for a previous administrator to bring it up, and I can see why, you know. And I understand, you get money dumped into your HSA from your employer, your wife does too. Do you pay anything for your health insurance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, I would encourage us, if we're gonna go this route, then we need to come up with multiple options then. And if we do continue a high deductible with an HSA plan, I would like to see us continue to put some money into an HSA plan for the employees.
Well, and perhaps personnel can look at that early in the year.
Remember that question?
Oh, yeah, I'll be there.
Remember that question. Do you pay anything for your health care?
Yeah.
You do. You pay, your employer pays a component of it, and you pay a component of it.
Mhm.
In addition, you get a fixed amount of money put in every month into your HSA.
Correct.
To help cover the costs of co-pays and things of that nature. Just remember that question. Ask staff, are they paying anything for their health care?
Also, they don't pay anything.
It's fully covered by the city.
So we were paying
addition to,
100%
money.
of their health care and throwing $2,600 a month into an HSA to cover the deductibles. So, and I don't live in that world. You don't live in that world.
Well, I do now.
Okay.
I dropped mine in. My wife pays $15 a month.
So I could certainly understand that maybe a particular amount of money going into an HSA in the future, maybe it is acceptable, but then the employee has to have skin in the race.
Sure.
It can't be free plus. I mean, I guess it can be. I don't support that.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. We'll look at it. It's just so there's options and we get a handle on it.
Okay.
That was my concern, so.
You know, as long as we're on there, Clarissa, you mentioned that you had some previous discussions with Ray over potential wage increases for the members of the fire department. But has personnel made aware of that prior to this going into the packet?
I have talked to personnel about we need to address those wages at some point in the future. We have not discussed it and gotten buy-in and fully vetted that discussion, so.
So was a wage increase part of the fire chief's budget?
Yes, you will recall I used you said we had a goal of a certain number of hours, and I utilized a higher wage rate and that set number of hours to come up with their part-time
Okay.
firefighting
Okay.
wage budget.
Okay.
So with that then, Councilmember DeLong, are you willing to make a motion to approve the 2022 wages and benefits as presented?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Motion by DeLong,
Second?
second by Cahill. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next item of business this evening is accounts payable. And for this one, we have a couple different motions on the table. And I'm going to turn it over to staff first.
Thank you, and I appreciate council's flexibility here on this. Typically, we would essentially postpone any invoices to the following month. However, with it being year-end, we would like to get those in as soon as possible. So we did add batch 3, this late December batch. And then we did separate out our normal invoices into a 2021 batch and a 2022 batch. That just helps with decreasing the number of journal entries we have to do during our audit process. And then also, I had sent out an email with these revisions and pointed out we would have had 8 batches because I had forgotten with these kind of late invoices that some are 21 and some are 22. So we added a couple to each of the city and the fire 22 batches, and then we added the late December, which are the 2021 invoices.
Okay, so
Ma-
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Mayor, I know, Clarissa, you sent out a batch at about 3:30 this afternoon, and I honestly did not get a chance to look at that, and I
Sure.
would ask, Mayor, could we just take a few minutes right now and give everybody an opportunity to look at that batch out of respect for the timing?
Yes, we can do that.
And I'd be happy to read them as well if you would like.
When did that come out?
3:30. So before you read, are you saying that, so now you've got batch 1, batch 2, batch 3 for both the city as well as the fire, am I correct?
Correct.
And are you saying that any of those batches are gonna be keyed for 2022, or is everything gonna be keyed for 2021? You mentioned 2022, what?
Yep, so 2 batches are, because we use accrual accounting and not cash accounting, we have expenses that we pay this year that are actually for next year. And so normally, the auditors would come in, they'd separate all of those out, they'd write a bunch of journal entries for us, they'd enter them, and then we'd have to back them out. And so this was a whole headache this year with these journal entries. So this way, we kind of get ahead of that process and we enter them separately. And so they're accrued in the appropriate year right off the bat.
Okay, so one of the questions I had specifically in fire, and I believe in city as well, was we're prepaying in December for maybe a year's worth of something for 2022. Those amounts will be applied to 2022 budgets, even though we're paying them?
That is correct.
Okay, because since February or March, fire has been saying, we're gonna be over budget, we're gonna be over budget. We've heard that, you've heard that in fire commission meetings. And so we're gonna be really over budget if $7,000 worth of training costs with the fire department actually get paid in 2021 fire instead of 2022. Why wouldn't we just wait till January's? Why wouldn't we just wait for January's accounts payable to pay certain fire-related invoices that are for 2022 services? Why are we trying to get it done in 2021?
Well, we pay because the invoices is due, and I would need to know specifically which invoice you might be referring to, of whether or not it was actually due.
Okay, for example, in the fire, Target Solutions, 12/31/21 through 12/30/22, training and travel, nearly $3,000. ESO Solutions, 1/1/22 through 12/31/22. These are contracts of something that take up the entire calendar year of 2022, but we're paying them in 2021. I just want some assurance that it is going to be paid out of the budgetary dollars in 22, not 2021.
Yes, if it's in the 22 batch, that is being accrued to the 22.
So
Target Solutions.
Why would we
and
go to
ESO.
that trouble? Why wouldn't we just pay it in January? It's not late. It's for the,
It
if it's
depends
for
on
the
when the
calendar
invoice.
year.
It depends on when the invoice is sent. So we have to pay by when the due date of the invoice. So if the invoice is due,
Statutorily, right? We have to pay within.
yeah, if it's statutory or an audit issue, if you remember. But I would note that our January meeting isn't until the fourth Monday of January.
Right.
So that invoice, it's unlikely that it was mailed to us in December and not due
No,
until.
according to this, it was, the invoice is dated December 2.
Sure, and I guess I would also question, why would we wait? I mean, if it's
Well,
not due until, I mean, if it's getting accrued against the 22 budget, does
As
it
long as
matter
it's-
when we cut the check?
As long as it gets applied and it's coming, when I look at the next commission meeting and I look at some form of budget reconciliation, that it shows that training and travel, for example, already in 2022 has drawn down, because that $2,830 is more than 10% of his annual budget. I just don't want it coming out of 2021, but I see I get it now, it's 2022. That's fine. Okay. And that is everything.
I think, Clarissa, the approach you're taking with the batches does make sense. It's just a different way that we're not used to dealing with, so just give us a little time to get our heads around it.
Yep, no, I totally understand it, and you guys, I think, see a lot more accounting right now than other cities probably do. A lot of this stuff happens behind the scenes, and you'd never know about it, and so you guys have requested that things come before you, and so that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, and some of that is respective of our size. I mean, we don't have staff,
Right.
focusing just on budget and HR, and we're accountable to it, so.
Yep.
Okay, so that was thank you for the clarification. I understand it now in the 21-22. Now, back in the city batches, specifically planning line items, I think some legal line items we did a series of sign permits, we did a series of plat reviews and things of that nature. Companies pull sign permit applications and they pay. How does it work where we're paying our city planner, we're paying our city engineer, we're paying our city attorney different fees this month that are specifically for developmental issues? Are those going to get paid by the business owner? Do we pay for it and then bill for it?
Right, so most of those are covered with that escrow process, and you'll recall that I revised that escrow process to hopefully get a better handle on making sure those charges get charged to the developers and such.
Right. But now, for example, on page 66, you specifically put escrow in the granted, $18.25 for the Gateway Villamule.
Mhm.
That's escrow. But you look at K&O Storage Site Plan Review, Spikes and Holes Sign Package, Maple Plain Smoke Shop Site Package, the Beck Old Schoolhouse,
Yeah.
Forklift Sign. I mean,
Those
how
are all
come
under-
these don't have escrow accounts associated with them?
They do, actually. That 701 fund
Yes?
is that new system that I set up, so.
Okay, it
that-
just doesn't say escrow like it
Right.
does. Okay, very well.
Right, yeah.
All right.
So if it's coded 701,
It's
an
coded
escrow.
701, it is going into a special bucket.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense then. New accounting, thank you.
I'm trying. You will recall in my interview process, accounting is not one of my specialties.
No, you're doing.
So this is
You're doing.
quite a learning curve for me.
You're doing great.
I do have a payable question,
Sure.
and I asked this last month, and I'm not sure I ever did get an answer. I'm gonna go back to fuel. What in the world are we putting $520 worth of unleaded fuel in, and what are we putting $780 worth of diesel fuel in?
I would have to refer to my fuel audit I've started. I haven't gotten all the way done. I did shift. I mean, there was in my kind of quick review, there was a clear indication that fire was using almost all of the, which one would that be then? Unleaded? What do the trucks use?
They use both.
Depends on the rig.
So
Mostly
we,
diesels.
yeah, so one of them I shifted, and they paid the majority of that particular fuel. I'm gonna go through and do a complete audit using their entries and see how close we are and make some adjustments if needed. We just haven't gotten that step
Will that be
yet.
done before the end of the books are closed?
Before the end of the audit, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
because something's very wrong in
It's a
the
lot of
fuel.
fuel.
Well,
It's been wrong for years, and I keep asking the same question, and until we do it,
Right,
I'll
and
keep
the-
asking the same
At
question.
one point, there were like generators.
Yes.
Was one of the.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did the arithmetic and came up with the fact that it was running 2 to 3 hours a week just as a startup to, to run it, make sure it remained operational.
Yeah, the test.
And we were running through like $2,000 worth of diesel fuel for something that ran, I don't know, 100 hours a year.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Did you have enough time to review?
I did.
Everyone else? Okay, so I'm gonna look for 2 motions tonight. We're not gonna do 6. I'm looking for 2 motions. The first would be to approve the city check batches. So approving check batch 1, check batch 2, and check batch 3 for the city.
So moved.
Moved by DeLuca,
Second?
second by Cahill. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving the 3 city check batches, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. The second check batch this evening will be for the fire partnership check batch, and that again is check batch 1, check batch 2, and check batch 3 for the fire partnership. Looking for a motion to approve those 3 fire partnership check batches.
So moved.
Moved by DeLong,
I'll make second.
second by Fay. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving the 3 fire partnership check batches, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next item of business this evening is staff reports. All of our staff have submitted written reports that we've all had a chance to read and review before tonight's meeting. So looking for a motion to receive those reports.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second.
second by DeLong. Does anyone have any questions for any of the staff regarding the reports? Okay, we have a motion and a second, so all in favor of receiving the staff reports as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we'll move on to new business this evening. Our first item is 1675 Spring Avenue site plan revision, and I'm going to turn that over to our city planner.
Great, thank you, Honorable Mayor, Council. I've got a couple items for you tonight. This first item is a request by Ann Rothstein and the Custom Building Service to consider amending their site plan that was approved in October so that they could flip the parking lot, essentially flip parking spaces to be up against building rather than being up against Highway 12. So the property's at 1675 Spring. The council, in September approved a site plan review and approval along with a variance for a setback for parking spaces from Highway 12 and in association with a new office building on this property. The applicant and their contractor approached the city after they staked the site and looked at it a little bit closer in the field and asked if they could come back to the city and just simply flip the parking spaces with the drive aisle, such that the drive aisle becomes, the Highway 12 frontage and the parking spaces are up against the building. Couple of reasons for that, so that the cars don't get sprayed with snow, so that their clients and employees can walk directly into the building rather than across the drive aisle. We looked at it. We didn't think it necessitated a full site plan re-review. We thought it could be done by council because it's so similar. But I will point out that in doing the revision, they are decreasing the total number of spaces that were proposed in the original site plan. So the original site plan had 12 parking spaces shown up against Highway 12. You can see that on the top side drawing. And then the proposed drawing has 6. 8 up against the building. In any case, the site plan review that we did identified a need for 6 total spaces. So anything over that is really up to the applicant. I also note that we do allow off-site parking on Spring Avenue as well. That wouldn't be prohibited in it by any means to have some parking space associated with the business. So we think that from a staff level review, there's really no reason to not consider this type of a flip, if you will. And what they're proposing seem to make sense. You can see the south drawing, or the one on the bottom of my sheet, shows how those spaces would be laid out. You can see the drive aisle up against. Dimensionally, one of the things we asked them to do in doing this was, because the spaces are now coming up against a sidewalk, up against the building, we asked them to make those spaces deeper. But because it's only a one-sided driveway, they made the drive aisle a little shallower, which complies completely with all of our standards and ordinances. So we'd have a 20-foot wide deep space, which then wouldn't have to overhang the sidewalk, leaving the sidewalk open for pedestrians. And then we'd have a 22-foot wide drive aisle, which is adequate for a single-loaded 90-degree parking drive aisle per our ordinance. So I'd be happy to take any questions. Applicants' representatives here as well.
Any questions for staff?
I do have a question, and I mentioned this when it came up in September. First of all, I like the idea of flipping it. I thought before with the snow plows and things of that nature, but and it goes back to the garage, and I'm not quite sure what the use of the garage is for, because if it's in fact for parking, and they're putting 2 parking spots in front of the garage drive lane, then we've got an issue with the purpose of a garage. If the garage is heated and it turns into a conference room or a storage facility or something of that nature because it's insulated and heated and what have you, then it's a different square footage calculation, and you follow my. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the garage. If they're using it to park a car, and if they're going to park a car, then can you stripe the area in front of it with 2 parking stalls?
Yeah. So I'd let I don't know if you want to weigh in on the use of that. I mean.
Well, Lance said they've got a float they pull in the parade and miscellaneous stuff. There's just planets of storing stuff in there.
Okay.
Office supplies, extra stuff like that.
So that's how they described it to me. It was kind of a catch-all, but it also could be an overflow meeting space if they needed to do that at some point. They didn't know, so it was kind of unprogrammed fully, but it would be flexible. So some storage, maybe they'd pull that out, use it for a larger gathering if they had it. And in that case, I think because, I looked at it as both, and I think both ways were okay on parking. We had a little more buffer on the last plan, but we still have a couple space buffer here. If they, the way I look at it is it's just operational. If they decide to park their cars in there because they want to be heated and that's what the boss wants to do or whatever, they could still park an employee behind that. They just have to coordinate, kind of the in and out.
Okay.
So I think it can work the way they're showing. I don't know that we had a huge issue because the site's adequately parked anyway.
They have
So
more than they-
yeah.
I do know at the truck and treat event, she brought like a tent and a bunch of tables and chairs, and
lots of stuff that she says she's been storing at home that she's hoping to
City
store
mower,
at work.
city mower maybe.
I don't know about that, but.
What is out in front of the garage? Because in the first plan, the previous plan, it had pavement up to the front of the garage. Now that pavement stops and there's something, I don't know what it's, C-O-N-G.
Concrete. So that's a concrete sidewalk, but it's just a concrete, like an apron basically. That's just gonna be concrete. And then it's gonna go right out into there's no curb up against that, so it's gonna just be poured right up to the asphalt there. In front of that garage, it's level, so you'll be able to drive right across the concrete. As you go in front of the rest of the building, it's what's called an integral curb, which means that the concrete walk acts as a 6-inch curb essentially from the asphalt.
Okay.
So it does allow access, vehicular access into that garage, like a garage would, coming out off the pavement.
Well, I see the detail on page
Yeah.
106.
Yeah.
So it'll act like a curb, or you drive over it to get into the garage.
Well, the garage is flat though,
Oh, they
so it's
will.
gonna go down,
Okay.
and then it's gonna be level at that point. If you look, you can see the end of the curb. I don't know if you can see it on the screen here. I put my pen out. It's right where the double line ends, where it says, you know, kind of 1024. There's an integral curb there,
Okay.
but whoops.
It's okay.
So we are looking for a motion to approve the site plan revision for 1675 Spring Avenue. Basically flipping the lot.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second.
second by DeLuca. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And Mark, we're just gonna keep working down the list.
Yeah, I've got a
Next.
couple more here.
All right.
So.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
So the next item on the agenda actually went to the planning commission as a concept plan review. I'll remind council that concept plan review is an informal process where there's no decisions made, there's no action taken, but it's just more of a process that allows the applicant to come in front of the planning commission and council, present an idea, in this case a concept subdivision plan, and get feedback, answer questions, try to get an understanding of what issues might be out there and whether or not they'd want to move forward with actually submitting a full application. So in this particular case, the property 1701 Baker Park Road is a property that's located just north of Independence on the west side of County Road 29 or 19 Baker Park Road. And it's a piece of property that's probably one of the larger residential properties that we have on that north side of Highway 12 area from a residential standpoint. So the property is 1.3 acres. It's zoned R2A, which is a zoning district that had been set up to really accommodate a mix of uses, kind of transition of uses between single family and then some multifamily. It's guided by the comprehensive plan currently under the 2030 comprehensive plan as 4 to 8 units an acre, but we redid that with the 2040 plan, which is going to be approved, I think, anytime now, formally approved. And we re-guided that to 1 to 4 units an acre. And so we looked at that area and said, well, we haven't really seen redevelopment of that occur. We re-looked at the lots and we said, boy, these lots don't really accommodate the type of density in 4 to 8 units an acre. It would be out of character with a lot of the surrounding properties, and the mixed use area gives us a lot of area already that hasn't been utilized for kind of a higher density. And so we knowingly re-guided that to 1 to 4 units an acre, still R2A. Within the R2A zoning district, the city does allow multiple family dwelling units. We allow up to a 4-unit multifamily dwelling. We have provisions that relate to that 4-unit in terms of the minimum, what we call lot size or base area of a lot in order to accommodate that type of housing. And we have some dimensional standards that are associated with that. So in our initial discussion with the owners of that property, they had talked about what would be allowed as it related to multifamily. They talked about the idea of simply just splitting it into 2 single-family lots, what would be allowed with that. And so there are a wide variety of uses that potentially could occur on that property. You could leave it as a single-family lot. You could split it into 2 single-family lots. You could leave it as 1 lot and construct up to a 4-unit kind of townhome attached multifamily dwelling on that property. And so we talked through what those scenarios looked like and how that lot could accommodate that. The restrictive factor for not allowing additional density outside the comp plan is the width of that lot. There's not enough width to develop 2 120-foot wide lots. They're short by 25 feet or so in order to be able to split it. So they really have up to about 4 units in a townhome type scenario. The applicants asked the city, would they be open to other ideas? Were there other concepts or needs in the community that could be beneficial, that would allow, that they could provide for on that property? And so they looked at a concept and they wanted to see what the feedback would be of the city of developing that property instead of with a multifamily product, develop it as a detached multifamily product, if you will, a kind of villa home type product. They would propose to come in off of Baker Park Road with a single driveway. That's actually consistent with what I think the county would ultimately allow on that property. And then develop a private driveway in their concept, 6 individual or detached villa homes. Couple of things that I noted, they're proposing to develop those villa homes such that the building setbacks would all be complied with. So whether it was a 4-unit multifamily building or these individual villa home buildings or a single family home on this property, they're proposing that none of these structures would encroach into the requisite setbacks. And so with that, Planning Commission reviewed this. They talked about a couple of different aspects. Planning commissioners talked about the overall density. Ultimately, commissioners thought that it was a little bit too dense. They thought 5 might be the right number. It might also be right in keeping with the 1 in 4 units per acre rather than the 4 to 8. And but commissioners also talked about preservation of natural resources. It was identified, and you can see on the aerial, there's kind of a pretty significant amount of existing vegetation. It's hard to see on that. It looks great on my screen, but there is a really nice tree stand kind of in this southwest corner of the lot, and then some nice trees kind of out in this area. And so in the plan that's proposed, they would be proposing to maintain, or to the extent possible, maintain existing vegetation. In this plan, they would be proposing to take down this existing detached accessory structure, which is the barn, essentially, as everybody I think knows. Back there's this existing kind of relic barn. And they would be bringing in, again, a single driveway that would be a private driveway that would come in to serve that development area. Commissioners like the idea of preserving trees. Commissioners also noted that ultimately they'd love to see some additional screening added to the perimeter to help with the transition between this type of density and the surrounding single-family density that's already there. Commissioners did note that if this was a true villa home type product, kind of a single-level living product, that would be something they'd be supportive of seeing in the community. They think there is a need or a demand for that type of product. I think one of the commissioners said she was going to sign a purchase agreement at the meeting.
She may have put a deposit down already.
For this product, but in any case, they also, commissioners asked about building materials. It was noted that the building materials would be very typical of residential products that are currently in this area, kind of an LP Smart Site or similar type materials, kind of warm tones, warm materials with, kind of typical style and and architecture, and then they gave some examples of, master on the first floor, second bedroom on the first floor, possibility of some of the lots being walkout or lookout with lower level that could be realized. Not necessarily two-story houses. These would be targeted at least as one-story. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions about the proposal, go into any more detail about it. The owners of the property and applicants are here as well. So with that, I turn it back to council.
Any questions for staff? Or for
What
the
are the
applicant?
setbacks?
So the building setbacks that we have are 25. I thought I wrote them in here, but maybe I took them out. But so the rear is 25, 10 side, and 35 front. It was noted by Planning Commission, and we did confirm that the setbacks for R1 and R2A are the same. So building setbacks are the same whether it's an R1 or an R2A. 35, 25, 10 are the requisite setbacks.
Okay, and you started your conversation saying that the developers would follow publish setbacks for this particular development, because as it stands, as I just looked at these footprints of these houses compared to, for example, the floor plan that they gave, or the setbacks between 3, 4, and 5, for example, wouldn't it be 10 and 10, for example? And so 10-foot building setback between the properties would technically be, I'm just, as I look at
Yep.
this concept plan,
Yep.
I don't think they can stick 6 houses in here if they're gonna stick to a,
So it's a good point. And I'll clarify. And this isn't. I'm not proposing it one way or the other in interpretation. I'm talking about if you were to build single family, they would meet those perimeter setbacks, so that the houses they're proposing don't encroach any closer to the existing or surrounding property lines. Within the development itself, it's a good point. Could you essentially carve this into individual lots, or would these be kind of more typical townhome lots where it's just the building pad per se, and then the exterior area is kind of a common space? In which case, it begs the question, do those side yard setbacks apply the same way on a detached product, like a multifamily detached product?
do they?
Yeah, it's questionable depending on where you go and how you interpret those ordinances. So if you came in with a 4-unit townhome building, you can go shared walls, right up against each other all the way through. This is a detached townhome of sorts, where then the question is, do you have to fully comply with the 20 feet between building?
You seek a variance.
Well, or it's not gonna necessarily be applied to these individual buildings the same way as if you were gonna subdivide this property into 6 single-family lots. And what they're not showing is property lines and/or whether or not
Right.
they're proposing to do one versus the other, kind of a more townhome style, which it would be maybe property, or a building wall to building wall, and then maybe out to the private driveway, and then maybe back. And maybe not have ownership of land around the perimeter of the building. So there's multiple ways you could do that, but it's a good point. I don't disagree with your interpretation that if we were to apply the 10-foot as a true single-family lot, they couldn't comply with that in the current configuration.
Because they've got 25 to 3,000 square feet footprint in their
Right.
in their plan, but they show their footprint on here as 50 by 40,
Right.
which is 2,000 square feet, and all of a sudden the math begins to get real fuzzy in that you'd almost have to have shared walls, but then you get rid of that. What I like is the individual detached component of at the look of it.
Yeah. And I think, and you guys can chime in, but my understanding is this is an illustration, not the proposed. So it's meant to be more illustrative of kind of
Okay.
architecture and general layout, but not necessarily what is represented completely in the lot size or the footprint.
It's understandable.
And since a site plan is supposed to be asking just for reactions more than anything else, as I
It's just, do
understand
you have
it.
any questions? Do you have any kind of high-level
Hey.
thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, mine is you're stuffing too many on a lot. Particularly when you plop it where that lot is. You look at the neighborhood, look around that, to plop 5 or 6 into that unit, not gonna look right when it's all done.
But, and are we going by the 2030 comp plan, or are we going by the 2040 comp plan?
Well, so I would tell you this, either way, 4